Hi and welcome to this video brought to you by Maths from Scratch. This is Column Method Edition Level 5. Now, if you're new to Maths from Scratch and you've never seen one of my videos before, this is Column Method Edition Level 5, and in this playlist we're going through how to do Column Method Addition from scratch. Now, if you're new, I'd suggest that you start at Level 1 and work your way up to Level 5. Now, if you've watched this from Level 4, welcome back. And so in this level, we're going to look at a few more complicated examples on column method addition questions. Namely, what happens when there are more than two numbers that needed to be added together, and also what happens when those numbers happen to be of different lengths. The reason being is that in the previous levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., we've only been using numbers that are the same length. So this level explains how we go about answering questions in those situations. Now, the reason that we're looking at this now is that this column method, when we're adding, works with an infinite amount of numbers, i.e. it really does not matter how many numbers that you need to add together, this method will work. So if you're adding 3, 4, 10, 11 numbers together, this method will help you add those numbers. So let's have a look at our first example. So in this example, we've been asked to add two numbers of different lengths together. So we've got 364, and to that we're going to add a 99. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we'll write the 364 down. And then the next thing is to think about how we're going to write this 99, because of course it's a different length. So all we need to do is think in terms of place value. So in 99 we've got 9 tens and 9 units. And so all we're going to do is line up the units in the units column and the tens in the tens column. So we've got a 9 in the tens column and a 9 in the units column. Now what that does is that creates a space underneath the 3, and that's because there's no hundreds to add from the 99. So this is either left blank, or we can add a 0 to signify the fact that there's no hundreds. For this example, let's just leave the 0 in there. So then we'll add our add sign, and then we'll add our lines. And then we'll go about answering this question in the usual way by adding up each column. So 4 add 9 gives me an answer of 13. So I carry the 1 and write the 3 underneath the units column. Move on to the tens. 6 add 9 is 15. Add the 1 is 16. And then move on to the hundreds column. 3 add nothing is 3. Add the 1, and that gives me a 4. And so the answer to this one is 463. Now, there is actually another way that we can approach this, and this is down to the fact that column method addition is really, really flexible. Now, the question itself has been written with the largest number first, 364 add 99. Now, we don't actually have to write the biggest number first. We can write the smallest number first. So let's just go ahead and see how that works. So we'll write a 99, and then we'll write the 364 underneath. And then in this example, what we'll do is we'll leave this blank. So instead of writing a 0 in, we won't put anything at all, because there's two ways we can do this. We can either put the 0 in or leave it blank. So in this example, we'll leave it blank. I'll put my lines in, and then we'll go ahead and answer it. And we will get the same answer because it's the same sum effectively. So 9 add 4 is 13. So I'll carry my 1, write the 3 underneath. 9 add 6, well, that gives me an answer of 15. Add the 1 is 16, and then 3 add 1 is 4. And so we didn't even take into account this because there's nothing there, so we just look straight down here. 3 add 1 is 4, and so as you can see, we've got 463 there, the same answer for both ways of writing this question out. Now, the reason this works and the reason we can do two versions is because adding works both ways. It really does not matter in which order you do your adding. Now, I have a personal preference of always writing the biggest number first, even if it comes second in the calculation. And what that does is it just helps the working out look neat, and it always, always, always is easier to mark from that point of view. The thing that you can choose, however, is whether you write a 0 or whether you leave it blank. But as you can see, it does work both ways with the order that you write your numbers in. So example number 2 then. So what you'll notice here is that we have the smallest number first. So we have 99 add 4,936. Now, again, remembering from example number 1 is that it doesn't matter in which order we write these down in our method workings, because addition works both ways. And if you also remember, I have a personal preference of always writing the biggest number first. Even though it's come second in our calculation, we can still do that. So let's go ahead and set up this method, set up our column method. So biggest number first, so 4,936. And then underneath that, I'm going to write my 99. So in 99, 9 tens, 9 units. So we need to make sure we line up our place value. 9 tens and 9 units. Going to draw my lines in. And then we're going to leave these two blank, these spaces. So we've got a space underneath the 9 and a space underneath the 4, just to signify that in 99 there's no hundreds and no thousands. So I'm going to leave these blank. And then we're going to go ahead and answer this question. So 6 add 9 gives me an answer of 15. So I'm carrying the 1 and writing the 5 underneath the units column. Moving on to the tens column, 3 add 9 is 12. Add this one here gives me an answer of 13. So I need to make sure I now write the one that I'm carrying underneath the column that's been created by the 9. 9 add this one is a 10. So again, making great care to write the little one underneath the column. The thousands column there gives me a 10. And then 4 add 1 gives me an answer of 5. So the answer to question 2 is 5,035. Now you can also do this again with zeros in the place here underneath the 9 and underneath the 4. You can put zeros in there. That's entirely up to you and that's your choice. Another reason why it's always beneficial to use the biggest number first is that writing the biggest number first allows you to create the spacing for your working out all in one go. Because you've got the largest number at the top, you can see straight away automatically how your columns are going to line up. If you have to start with the smallest number or you leave the biggest number till the end, it's always hard to get some columns that correctly line up nicely, especially if you're doing it on plain paper or lined paper, because there's no squares to help line up your columns there. So that's example number 2 done. Okay, then moving on to example number 3. So here is the first example now where we have more than 2 numbers written in a row. So we need to look at how we use the column method addition to add more than 2 numbers. So here we've got 3 numbers. So always choosing the biggest one to go first. So 4,362. Let's create this method. Let's start showing our workings and setting up our columns. So we've got 4,362 first. Then we've got 463 if we're going to go in size order. So this is in the hundreds. So we line up the 463 underneath the hundreds column there, and then the tens and the units follow. And then the last one is a 44. Now, because this is our third number and we've not actually seen how we put a third number in the method addition, all we do is just include it underneath. So if there were 5 numbers that needed added together, you would just stack 5 numbers on top of one another. If there were 7, you'd stack 7. So it really doesn't matter how many numbers you've got in your question, you just stack them on top of one another, arrange them in columns, and then add each column up separately as you would do usually. So now I'm going to add my plus sign in my lines. Okay, so then let's go ahead and answer this. So 2 plus 3 is 5. Add that 4 gives me an answer of 9. So we write that under the units column. Then we're moving on to the tens column. 6 add 6 is 12. And add another 4 onto that gives me an answer of 16. So I'll carry my 1, write the 6 underneath the tens there. Move on to the hundreds column. We have 3 plus 4, which is 7. Add a nothing, because there's nothing there. Still 7. And then add that 1. It gives me an answer of 8. And then moving on to the thousands column, there's nothing else there. It's just a 4. No thousands in the other numbers. So then that just gives me an answer of 4,869. Okay then, so here is example number 4. And here is a question where there's now 4 numbers written in a row that we need to add together. Now again, from example number 3, all we do is stack these on top of one another and then just answer them as we would do usually by adding up each column. Now, I also have a preference of always starting with the biggest number first. So the first one is 4,762. And the reason for that is this helps us set up the spacing in our workings. So I've done that one. And especially when you've been asked to add up a string of numbers, I like to just cross them off or tick them so I know I've included it. 360 is then the next second largest. So 360, making sure to line up your numbers in place value terms. Then we have a 94, and then we have a 24 underneath, making sure to line up our columns in terms of place value. Add the lines, and then let's go about adding up each column in turn. And just before we do that, if you just notice how neatly lined up the columns are, the more you practice this and the more you emphasize neatness, the easier it will be in the long run, both to complete yourself and both to mark. I have seen numerous scripts, so papers, where people have written down one thing and then added up something else by just not being kind of properly on it in terms of the presentation. So unit column then, so 2 add 4 add 4, well that gives me an answer of 10 because 2 4s are 8. Add the 2 gives me a 10, so I'm going to carry the 1 and write a 0 underneath. So here we have 2 6s, which is a 12. Add the 9 gives me a 21, 22, 23, and then we have a 24 on that one. So this time we carry in a 2. So whatever number needs carrying, you carry. It could be a 3, it could be a 4, depending on how big your stack of numbers are. So you just carry the number that's in the tens there. 7 add 3 is 10. Add your 2 gives me a 12. Carry the 1. Then write the 2 underneath that column. And then now we're dealing with the thousands column. So 4 add 1 gives me a 5. Now, like I keep mentioning, my preference is to write these in size order, but you don't have to do that. That's just a preference. I think it's the easiest thing to do, but that doesn't mean you have to do it blindly. So let's just see what it would look like if you did write these down in the order that you saw them in the question. So here I've just written out the numbers in the order that we see them, and I've already done this for just to save a bit of time. So let's just answer this then to see what answer we get. It should be the same, obviously. So first column gives me a 10, and then the second column is going to give me an answer of 24, and then 3 add 7 gives me a 10, add the 2 is a 12, and then 4 add 1 gives me a 5. Now you might prefer the look of that. Again, it might not concern you, you're not entirely bothered by it, but it's nice to see that it works in both ways, so you've got a proper understanding of how this method works. So that's example number 4 completed. So here is example number 5. So as you'll notice here now they are 5 numbers written in a row. But not to worry, we still use column method addition and we set it up in exactly the same way. We start with the largest number first and then stack them up on top of one another in terms of place value, ensuring that we line up each number in terms of its place value. Now, watching me write these numbers down is probably more akin to watching paint dry, so I've just quickly done this for us now to save a bit of time. So then let's go ahead and answer this question now then. So I'll start with the units column. 9 add 4, add 0, add 5, add 9. Well, that gives me an answer of 27. So I'm going to carry the 2 and then write the 7 underneath. And then we'll add the tens column. So the column itself gives me an answer of 14. Then I need to add the 2, so that gives me an answer of 16. So I'm going to carry the 1 into the hundreds column and write a 6 under the tens. And again, steady away wins the day on these ones. It really does pay to kind of be mindful and just slow down a little bit, because it's so easy to make a little mistake, which throws everything out of kilter then. Because more often than not, most questions go wrong with a mistake that happened here, and then it just carries on all the way till the end. So then if we start with the hundreds column, so 2 6s add a 3, so that gives me 15. Add the 1 gives me an answer of 16, so I'll carry the 1 into the thousands column and then write a 6 underneath. And then we deal with the thousands column, so 4 plus 3 is 7, add the 1 there is 8. And then we've got the 10,000s column and then the 100,000s column, so 1 plus 4 is 5, and then 2 on its own gives me a 2. So the answer to this particularly long calculation gives me 258,667. And just so you can see what it would be like if we started with the smallest number first instead of the biggest, that's what your column method addition setup would look like if you decided to kind of do it in reverse. If you started with your smallest number and then worked all the way down to the biggest number. So again, I can't stress enough, it really doesn't matter in what order you add these together, which number you write at the top, but do have some kind of system so it's not just random, because if it starts becoming random, that's when little inaccuracies can kind of take place and you forget to add a number, which again I've seen done and is easily done. So that's example number 5 completed. Okay, so here's example number 6. So here we have 7 numbers that need to be added together. Now this is a bit of a ridiculous example, but it is something that you could find in one of your exams, but it serves to show that column method addition works in any situation, and how many numbers that you need to add together, it doesn't matter, column method addition will work. So as you can see, I've lined them up from biggest to smallest there, making sure that I've ticked them off when I wrote them down, so I don't miss any, which is easy to do, to kind of miss a number and then your calculation's all wrong. So let's go ahead and answer this question. So the first column, so adding up all these units, so that gives me an answer of 22. So we'll carry the 2 and write the 2 underneath. So this is why it pays to leave a space in between each column, so you can write the number that you're carrying. Now the second column gives me an answer, when I add all these together, gives me an answer of 26. But then I need to add that 2, so then that gives me an answer of 28. So I'll carry my 2 again and write the 8 underneath the tens column. Now my hundreds column, 3 3s. Well, I can use a quick bit of multiplication here. So 3 3s are 9. And then add this 2, so that gives me 11. So I carry the 1 into the thousands column, write the 1 unit there. In my thousands column, I've got nothing plus 4, which is just 4. Add this 1 down here, gives me an answer of 5. And then my 10,000s column, there's nothing else in there, so that's just 1. So my answer to example number 6 is 15,182. Right, okay then, so it's practice question time. Now, that was quite a long lesson, but I think it needed to be, due to the fact that this column method addition is probably one of the most used written methods that there is. So it really does pay to get really good at this method and practice it so much so it becomes second nature, so you can use it, well, wherever really. So yeah, have a go at those practice questions. There's 6 for you to have a go at. There's a ridiculous one on question 6, but it's something that you might encounter in later life, or indeed in your exams, be it GCSE or what have you. So have a go at those. Pause the video, grab a piece of paper, because it is important that you do these on a piece of paper and practice setting up the method so it becomes easy for you to do. Pause the video. Once you've had a go at those, play the video again, and I'll go through the quick answers, and then obviously we'll go through each question in turn with a full answer walkthrough, so you can see where you might have made a silly mistake, if indeed you have made one at all. So good luck with those. Okay, welcome back. So let's go through the quick answers for those 6 questions then, where you've been practicing your column method addition. So the answer to question 1 was 531. Question 2 is 1,401. Question 3 is 10,249. Question 4, the answer was 79,339. Question 5 was 108,746. And then question 6 is 122,834. So if you've got all those right, good job, because those have been quite tricky. You can now go and watch column method addition level 6, which is where we talk about how we add decimal numbers together, because the column method addition does work for that also. Now, if you've unfortunately made a little mistake and you're not sure where you might have gone wrong, keep watching and I'm going to go through each one of those 6 in full for you there. So if that's you done, well done. Thanks for watching Maths from Scratch, and I'll see you again soon. Okay then, so let's go through these questions one by one, ready for our answer walkthrough. So if we take question number 1 then. So what we're going to do is we're going to write the biggest number first, even though the biggest number is not first in our actual question. Remember, my method is to write the biggest number first. Also remember, it doesn't really matter, it's just my personal preference, and I think it's better if you do, for mentions explained in the lesson itself. So first thing, 4, 3, 2. Set up our columns, and then underneath that we're going to add a 99. So make sure to line up our columns in terms of place value, 9 tens, 9 units, add the lines, and so we now add up each column in turn. So 2 plus 9 gives me an 11, so I'm going to carry the 1 and write the 1 underneath the first column. Move on to the second column, the tens column. 3 add 9 is 12. Add the 1 there gives me a 13, so I need to carry the 1, write the 3 underneath the second column. And now my third column, the hundreds column, 4 plus nothing is 4, add the 1, gives me a 5. So 432 add 99 gives me an answer of 531. Right, practice question number 2 for the answer walkthrough then. So write the biggest number first, set up our columns. So we have 1,364, and then we're lining up 37 underneath this for my place value. So 3 tens, 7 units. Add my lines. So 4 add 7 gives me the answer of 11. Carry the 1, write the 1. Onto my tens column. 6 plus 3 is 9. Add this 1 gives me a 10. So I carry my 1, write my 0. And if you notice again, I am adding the column up first separately, and then I'm adding the number I need to carry on at the end. I think if you have a system for everything, you practice that system and you perfect that system and you get good and quick at it. Move on to the hundreds column. 3 add 1 is 4, because there's nothing in the hundreds column there next to the 3. And then the last column, 1 add nothing, is just 1. So the answer to practice question number 2 is 1,401. So hopefully you can see where you might have made a little mistake in that one. And so here we have the answer walkthrough for question number 3 then. So just to save a bit of time, I've already set up the column method and written them in size order, if you'll notice. So the biggest numbers are on the top, and taking great care to line up my numbers in terms of place value there. So then if we add up the first column, so we have 4 add 4, which is 8. Add the 1 there, gives me an answer of a 9. Move on to the tens column. 3 add 7 is 10. Add the 4 gives me a 14. So I'll carry the 1 and then write the 4 underneath the tens column there. 6 add 5 is 11. Add the 1 there gives me an answer of 12. Making sure to write that little 1 under the thousands column. And then 9 add 1 gives me an answer of 10. So the answer to question number 3 is 10,249. Okay, so let's have a look at practice question number 4 then. So 4 numbers, this time written as an add. So largest number first, and then again, like all of these examples, I prefer to write the biggest number first and then cascade it down. So let's add up the first column. So 7 add 7 is 14. Add that 4 is 18. Add that other 1 there, gives me a 19. Now we'll look at the tens column. So here's a little quick tip on how to add up a string of single digits, and that's just to build them up in chunks of 10. So 6 add 4 here is 10, and then I know I've got 3 left because I've got 1, 2, 3 there, so I know that's 13. Move on to the hundreds column. 9 add 3 is 12. Add the 1 that I've been carried gives me another 13. Right, the 3 underneath. 9 add 9 is 18. Add that 1 gives me a 19. And then 6 add 1 is 7. And so the answer to question number 4, 79,339. Okay, now example number 5. So again, set them up in size order. So with 101,309 first, and then I'm going to go through and answer these in turn. So 10 units column first. So 9 add 7, add 2 zeros, well that gives me an answer of 16. So I'm going to carry my 1 and write the 6 underneath the units column there. Now I'm in my tens column. So 1 add 7 is 8. Add my 5 gives me a 13. Add that 1, then it gives me an answer of 14. Onto the hundreds column. So we have 7 add 3 is 10. Add 2 and the 4 gives me a 16. Add that 1 there is a 17. And then 1 add 6, that's 7. Add that 1 there is 8. Now there's nothing in the 10,000s column, so that's just going to be a 0. And then there's nothing in the 100,000s column, so that's just going to be a 1. So my answer to question 5 is 108,746. Now, if you just kind of remember what I talked about adding up number bonds to 10 to make adding up single digits easier, I did it again here. So 7 add 3 is 10. So that's those two disappeared or kind of thought about. And then 2 add 4, we know that makes 6. 10 add 6 is 16. And add that 1 there is 17. So that really is a good quick little tip on how to quickly add up single digits is if you try and build tens. It just makes it quicker to compute, I think. Okay then, so here we have question number 6. So this is a slightly ridiculous one, but it serves as an example to see how we can use column method with these with a long string of numbers here. So practice question number 6 then. So I find the easiest way to do this is to kind of be dead systematic and have a method that I use every single time. Now, because there's a fair few numbers here, when I write down the number, I'm going to tick it off, just so it's easier to see what I'm doing in my working. Most errors that I've seen in students' work comes from just careless working, and they've actually created the error themselves by copying down the number wrong or missing a number out of the calculation. And it's so easy to do when you're starting to do maths in anger. So you just need to practice to make sure that all possibilities of errors are cancelled out, really. So I've done that one, so I'm going to tick it, so I know that I've written that one down. Next highest is 9,999, so lining up my columns. Oh yeah, we've done that one. Next biggest, so that's a 601. And then it's going to be a 272. And then 49, and then 11. If you have a method and you be dead systematic and you do this every time, you'll get these right every time. It's a simple process. So I'll draw my lines underneath. Okay, so then let's do this column. So adding up the units column then. So all of these digits added together, it gives me a sum of 24. So write the little 2, because that's the tens that we're carrying. Write the 4 underneath. Then the sum of the tens column, well, that gives me an answer of 21. Then we need to add the 2 there, which gives me an answer of 23. So then we carry the 2 into the hundreds column, write the 3 underneath. Then it really does pay to kind of take time over adding up your columns. So then the third column then, so if we add these together, that gives me an answer of 26, or 9 add 9 plus 6 plus 2 is 26. But then add the 2 there. So I always add my carry last, so that gives me an answer of 28. So then I'm carrying into the thousands column, write the 8 underneath the hundreds. So again, you've just got to kind of be mindful of whereabouts you are in the calculation for this. Now on the thousands column, so then we have 1 plus 9 is 10, add the 2, so that gives me a 12. And then we're in this column now, so 1 add 1 is 2, and then the final one there is a 1. And so finally, the answer for question 6 is 122,834. And then I think this example serves as a nice demonstration of how complicated you can make these additions when you're using column method addition. So that's column method addition level 5 done and dusted. Thanks for watching. If you think this has been helpful, subscribe, share, like, tell others about this YouTube channel where I'm trying to teach people maths from scratch. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.